Assalamu alaikum friends. My name is Ajmal Mahmood and today I have an interesting topic for you. That is basics of immigration. So let's talk about outline. Why I have decided this topic, basics of immigration, because people always ask me to write legal pathway to immigrate to Canada. So these are the pathways. If you can choose, you can come here easily with the help of one of these pathways. First of all, I will discuss study permit, then postgraduate work permits, also known as PGWP, permanent residency, also known as PR, express entry, federal skilled workers, Canadian express class, provincial nominee program, and also PNP, sponsorships, and finally startup visa. So let's move on to our first point, that is study permit. What are the things required? What is the eligibility requirement? First of all, you need to enroll in a designated learning institution. For instance, if you are a college degree holder or a college diploma holder, you need and you want to enroll yourself in a college. For instance, in Calgary, there are many colleges like Bow Valley or SAIT. First, you need admission, you need enrollment in that college or any other college. Secondly, proof of funds to cover your tuition fee, living expenses, return transportation and commute. And secondly, you need no criminal record, means police report. Then you should be in good health so that you can come here and study, and proof you will leave at the end of your program. So the funds in your account or your sponsor person's account show that you will return at the end of your program. And next thing is you need an acceptance letter to a designated learning institution. For instance, if you are enrolled in Bow Valley College, you have to have an invitation letter or acceptance letter from Bow Valley College. You should have a valid passport or travel document. Proof of funds, as I have already said, you should have proof of funds to meet your expenses, valid credit or debit cards. You should have a valid debit or credit cards because nowadays in Canada or in Calgary, you need a debit or credit card for your day-to-day matters. And of course, finally, online application. Study permit, you need to get a study permit, you have to put your fees, you have to submit your fees, you have to do your medical exam. Then you will have to get your police certificate or also known as character certificate. Language testing. You should have required benchmarks of whatever your exam is. If you have taken IELTS exam, if you have taken any other exam which is valid in Canada, you can submit those benchmarks. Then you have to obtain a visa for Canada and biometric. Then you have to give your fingerprints, and you have to submit your application fee. That is almost $150. So let's move on to when does your study permit expires? It's a frequently asked question, that when does your study permit expires? Only taking prerequisite courses, permit expires within 1 year of completion of those courses. So if you have prerequisite courses, your permit expires within 1 year of those courses. And you may need to extend your study permit if you will not finish your courses within timeline or before expiration of your study permit. So you need to extend your study permit if you have not finished your courses within the time limit. So finish your courses before expiry of permit, because permit expires 90 days after completion of studies. And then 290,000 individuals with study permits in Canada arrived in 2019. So let's move on to postgraduate work permits and PGWPs. What is the eligibility criteria of these PGWPs? Recent graduates from Canadian University must apply within 180 days of final grades. If one has received their final grades, and they must apply within 180 days. They should be a full-time student. Can be a degree, diploma or certificate holder as long as the program was longer than 8 months. 2 or more year or 3-year work permits they can have. If they have 2 or more years, then they have 3-year work permit. And less than 2-year work permit equal to the length of study. So this means that if they have 2 or more years of studies, they can have work permit for 3 years. And if they have less than 2 years, their work permit is equivalent to their length of studies. For instance, if a person has study visa for 2 years and their course will finish in 2 years, their work permit will also be finished in 2 years. And cannot have previously obtained a work permit based upon prior educational program. They do not have that work permit. And spouses of postgraduate work permits holders, they can also apply for this. Eligible to apply for open work permit under LMIA exemption C41. The postgraduate students must be employed in skill O, A or B. I repeat, that postgraduate students must not be indulged or inducted in programs other than O, A or B. That is mandatory requirement. So PGWP process, fee is $255 for application, $155 plus $100. Processing time normally 114 days to almost 120 days. This is normal processing time. I am not talking about STS. Official letter from your school confirming completion of your program. You have to have official letter from your school confirming completion of your study program. Official transcripts are also required from your school. Next, let's talk about permanent residency. We have 3 options for permanent residency. Number 1 is express entry through federal skilled workers or Canadian experience class or provincial nominee programs. Sponsorship by a spouse. There is another program that person can be sponsored through their spouses or common law partners in Canada. In 2017, 159,000 student people come through permanent residency, and now they have raised their bar from 150,000 people to almost 500,000 people. And then federal skilled worker application. What are the requirements? First of all, experience. They should have experience, at least 1 year experience. 1,560 hours in last 10 years. At least they should have experience of 1 year in which they must spend 1,560 hours in last 10 years. Must be mandatory requirement again is their skill level or their skill should be type O, means management. Professional with A with professional with university degree, B technical with diploma or training, and those programs or those jobs should be under NOC. So there should be a language ability. What are the language abilities? Strong English or French. Minimum CLB 7 in all components: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. I repeat, they should be minimum CLB 7 in all domains: reading, writing, listening and speaking. Either they want to choose French or they want to choose English. Education level should be certificate, diploma, degree, certificate, diploma, degree from any Canadian institution or recognized by a credential assessment center. Now let's move on to express entry. What are the main points for express entry? First of all, there are 6 major criteria, also known as human capital. Number 1 is your education. Second, work. Third one is your age. Fourth one is your language proficiency. Fifth one is your arranged employment in Canada. And last one is adaptability factor, means that if someone has can adopt you in Canada, or if you have a close relative here, like brother, sister, or any close blood relation. It is known as adaptability. So minimum 67 points required to apply for application. I repeat, 67 points, which include your education, your work experience, your age, your language proficiency, your arranged employment, and your adaptability factors. If you have high qualification, highly educated person, for instance, if you are a doctorate, you have a doctorate degree or PhD degree, you have maximum marks. If you are falling in the age limit between 25 to 30, you can have maximum marks. And if you have experience more than 3 years or more than 3 years, you can have maximum marks. And if you are a language proficient person, either in English or in French, you can have maximum marks. And finally, if you have a job arrangement, you can get a bonus point. And if you have close blood relations here, you can have additive advantage. So minimum 67 points required, and supporting documents should be your proficiency test results, or either it is IELTS, CELPAP, or TOEFL, or as you know that some of test has been included in the recent session. Police clearance certificate is also required within 6 months, not more than 6 months. So try to have your police verification certificate within the time limit. Proof of settlement funds within past 30 days. So Canadian government has offered a list of expenses so that one should have those expenses. I will show it on my description that how to access those funds, that what are the requirements of those funds. So if currently in Canada, must be in Canada legally for at least 1 year. If a person applying from Canada, he or she should be 1 year within Canada, 1 year, and they should be legal from last 1 year. So Canadian experience class, the next point is Canadian experience class. What are the eligibilities? At least requires 1 year documented full-time skilled work experience. I repeat, a person who is applying under Canadian experience class must have 1 year documented full-time skilled work experience. And the work experience must have been completed on valid work permit in Canada. It should not be invalid work permit or without work permit. That is nothing to do with Canadian experience class. So the experience must be completed in last 36 months prior to applying. If someone has done work prior to 36 months, that is not valid. Must be skill type O, means management, skill type A, professional with university degree, or skill type B, technical or skill trade with college diploma or training, or national occupation classification. Let's move on to what are the proofs required for CEC or Canadian experience class. Number 1 is proof of strong language proficiency. Even in you are in Canada, you need to show your proficiency of language either in English or in French. And what are the requirements? As I have said earlier, CLB 7, if NOC O and A, minimum requirement is CLB 7, either in French or in English. However, if you are in NOC B, you can have CLB 5 in all domains. If you are in Canada, no settlement funds required. The good news is that if you are in Canada, no settlement funds are required and almost 6 months time period required to process your application. So, Express Entry, Federal Skilled Worker and Canadian Express. So, all Federal Skilled Workers and Canadian Express application must be completed through the Express Entry system. There is no way out. You should have to submit your application through Express Entry system. Create my CIC account to create profile. You have to create your own profile. You have to submit your application through Express Entry pool. There is no any other shortcut. Comprehensive ranking system, also known as CRS. You have to mention, or you know that what is your score. Random but regular draws from the pool, and we have seen that in this year that there are many pools were conducted and many ITAs invitation to apply was offered. When drawn, given an invitation, if you are lucky one, you can get an invitation to apply, and you should apply within 60 days of receiving of your ITA. And here are some data that in 2019, almost 81,000 people came here in Canada. 81,000 people came here through Express Entry. And in 2020, almost 85,000. In 2021, almost 88,000. And now you know that this year and the next coming years, Canada is planning to invite almost 1.5 million people, and out of them, almost 60% are through Express Entry. Let's move on to provincial nominee program. So I will discuss about provincial nominee program as from Ontario's point of view. So first of all, if you are applied for provincial nominee program, you should have a nomination certificate. And provinces issue nomination certificate to individual across the provinces. You can apply for a nomination certificate through a job offer stream. There are 3 or 4 streams. Through a job offer stream, through master's graduate pilot program, or through PhD programs. For those people who are highly qualified, I recommend them to go for provincial nominee program, either for Ontario, Alberta, BC, whatever. But they should go for PNP program. They are most likely to get in. And there are 2 steps of PNP application process. Number 1, submission of the federal. First of all, they have application to the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, OINP, and then they submit federal PNP application. So I repeat. First of all, step 1, application to the Ontario Immigration Nominee Program, OINP. And secondly, they will submit application through federal PNP application. And normally the processing time of PNP is 15 to 19 months. 15 to 19 months, and through PNP program in 2017, almost 49,724 people come here. Let's move on to sponsorship. It has 2 parts. First of all, spouse or common law partner must be accepted as a sponsor. So part 1 is if the person who is sponsoring must be accepted as a sponsor. And number 2, sponsored persons must be accepted as permanent resident. If they are not permanent resident, they cannot sponsor anybody. What are the requirements of sponsorship? Must be a permanent resident or citizen of Canada. So anyone who do not have permanent residency or Canadian citizenship cannot sponsor anybody. So must provide detailed information about their income, history, and full details. Already a person who is permanent resident here, they have, the Canadian government have their details, but they have to provide it. Must complete an undertaking with the Canadian government promising to support the person they want to sponsor for 3 years. So the liability is on the sponsored person, that they will sponsor, they will take the responsibility of next 3 years for the person who is sponsoring too. Next, applicant requirement. What are the application requirement? No assessment of age. There is no assessment of age, no assessment of education. So for sponsorship, no age requirement is here in Canada. There is no education requirement. Work experience, language abilities, settlement, funds, these are not the requirements. I repeat, there is no assessment of age, education, work experience, language, settlement, funds, etc., etc. There are no requirements. Just they need a sponsor. Only requires proof of bona fides of relationship, that they are in the relationship. They must show that they are in the relationship of that person who is sponsoring too. So 82,000 people admitted in 2017 in Canada through this sponsorship. Let's move on to startup visa. People often ask about sponsorship visas. So the fee of sponsorship startup visa is $1,540 minimum. And processing time is, according to IRCC, this time is 12 months to 16 months. I'm not telling about it. According to Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship of Canada, the processing time of startup visa is 12 to 16 months. What are the requirements? Should have a qualifying business, a letter of support from designated organizations. In my next video, I will tell you about what are the organizations who can support you for your startup visas. So there are language requirements. Settlement funds are also required. Biometrics, medical exam, police verification certificates. These are the requirements for startup visas. I repeat, there are language requirements. There are settlement fund requirements, that how that person meet their expenses. Biometric requirements, medical exam, police verification, and 587 people are admitted in 2017 in Canada. So this is all about my presentation. I would like to conclude my presentation with this saying that you must apply by yourself. You can follow these paths through. These are very clear-cut paths. First, you can come through study permits. You can come through express entry under federal skilled workers or Canadian express class, or you can have a sponsored visa. You can marry a woman or a person living in Canada. Through that sponsorship, you can come. And finally, you can come through startup visa. But keep it in mind that work by yourself, do your own research. First, do your own research. Don't involve agents. They are just manipulating your things and keeping your hard-earned money from you without giving anything to you. So these are all information taken from IRCC official website, canada.ca, or Statistic Canada. These are all information, I repeat, taken from canada.ca, or it's also a Canadian official website, and Statistic Canada. So this is all about the basics of immigrants. Hope so you will try by yourself and you will get your PR by following these methods. Thank you so much. If you like my video, please like, share, and ring the bell.